Welcome to another episode of Collector House Conversations. I'm Jennifer Klos, and I'm an art advisor. Today, I'm at Christie's Dallas with Specialist Vivian Brodie, who is in town from New York. So tell us a little bit about the life of a painting from beginning to end in the auction world.
Sure, very happy to. When a painting comes to Christie's, it usually comes from several different areas. It can come from a gallery, from a private consignor, from a museum. It can also come from a nonprofit. These different venues are what we call our consignors, and that's where we get the artwork. Once they're at Christie's, we do extensive research on every painting, which we call our expertise process, to confirm the authenticity of the work, to stand behind our warranty, and to find out any further information about the work that might not exist in our very large library that we spend a lot of time with. Once the paintings come to Christie's, we photograph everything ourselves. We condition check everything. We document everything about the painting that we can find out. So any signatures, provenance, condition issues, we really want to document all of that. All of that information goes into our catalog. Once that all is complete, we install everything at Christie's at Rockefeller Center in New York. And then that's when we start inviting people into Christie's to see the paintings. We are completely free and open to the public, so we love giving tours to different groups, different collectors. From there, the next big moment is the auction. And once that happens, the auction takes place. We have phone bidders that bid in from around the world. We take bids online, and then you can also bid in person. So lots of people also choose to come to Christie's in person and sit in the sale room, which is another way to transact with us.
Sold.
Well, we happen to be sitting in front of one of my favorite artists, Helen Frankenthaler. One of her most unique traits is her technique. So tell us a little bit about her technique.
So you're absolutely right. Helen is very well known for her technique. She kind of pioneered this process of pouring diluted pigment onto the canvas. She started this in the late 50s, early 60s. And Helen Frankenthaler really sits between two really kind of separate groups of artists. She sits between the abstract expressionists of the 1940s and 50s, Jackson Pollock, Rothko, de Kooning, and of the color field painters, Morris Louis, Jules Olitsky. And those two groups really inform her practice. And she also, separate from those groups, is a very unique artist in her own right. This painting behind us is from 1982, so it's a little bit later in her career. This does show that technique. This is poured diluted pigment on canvas, and you're getting these very rich reds and blues throughout. And there's also a lot of heavy application of paint right on the surface. In the 1980s, Helen was really looking at a much darker palette at that time, and there was a lot of critical reception for these works then. This was a very unique palette to the color field painters. She really went much darker than some of her peers at that time, which really set her apart. This work is especially beautiful because of its palette. You know, the red is really so rich. You don't see that so often. The purple is really beautiful, the blue as well, with these really lovely kind of interjections of white, which I think just bring the canvas to life, and we're really excited to have it.
We're standing in front of a work by Wayne Tebow, which is a work on paper. So tell us a little bit about what to look for when we are collecting works on paper.
This work by Wayne Tebow is really interesting because it's actually almost a double work on paper. So if you'll notice here in the bottom right, it says 1964 and 2002 on either side of his signature. Tebow worked on this twice. In 1964, he made an etching, which is where you see this kind of plate outline around the outside. That's the edge of the plate hitting the paper. And all of these black lines are the etching. That portion of this artwork is not unique. This came from an edition. And we know that because it says trial proof, which means it's a proof to sit outside of a larger edition. The date 2002 refers to when he went back to hand color everything, which makes this work completely unique. One of my favorite things about it, which was really kind of a funny story, on the bottom left here it says nickel machine in quotes, and nickel is spelled wrong. And we reached out in our expertise process, and the gallery actually informed us that Tebow wasn't always the best speller, so this is definitely him. He also always signs with a little heart and then Tebow, which you have here in the lower right, right under the edge of the plate, and you have that really cute little pink heart. What's also special about this work is the imagery. Different types of kind of game machines crop up in Tebow's work all the way through his career. So this is definitely an iconic image for him.
And I love the personal stories that you can get from your expertise.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'm now standing in front of another highlight from the sale by Andy Warhol, and I noticed it's slightly different from his typical silkscreens. So can you tell us a little bit about this piece?
So this work is one of Andy Warhol's shoes from the 1950s. Our date is around circa 1950. We're not exactly sure when he produced this work, but we do know it was in the 1950s, and we have a couple reasons for knowing that. A, he's using this blotted line technique, which is very typical for works from the 1950s. He also finished a lot of these shoes in the 1950s. Prior to Andy Warhol having a major gallery career in New York, he was an illustrator, and that's really where you see his inspiration in fashion. We actually have another lot in the sale from 1980, which is Andy Warhol again tackling shoes. In the 1980s, Warhol returned to this theme and made the Diamond Dust shoes, which are silkscreened, which are probably closer to the works that you would recognize. This work is really special. It says to Greta Garbo here down on the lower left, and is signed Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol didn't gift this work to Greta Garbo. This was really an homage to her. He was very much obsessed with her celebrity, and so this shoe is dedicated to her.
Now I noticed there's an applique of this detail. Do we see that often in his works?
Yes, you're absolutely right. This applique is pretty traditional for the shoes, and you'll notice it's plastic. It kind of starts all the way here and outlines a good chunk of the shoe. So you see a little bit of the glue portion where he adhered the applique, and this is very standard for his work. This is a part of his process.
Well, I'm now standing in front of a work by Yayoi Kusama, one of the most well-known female artists of the moment who has an international cult following. This work is from 1966. Let's take a look at how this early work compares to what we see now in her work.
So this work is from 1966. It's a very strong example of one of Yayoi Kusama's early infinity nets. In 1966, Kusama's living in New York. She's moved from Japan at this time, and this is really the beginning of the infinity net series, the beginning of the polka dots. Kusama is most well known for these infinity net series, and you see this beautiful brushstroke with impasto, different colors, but this very flat screen across the canvas. This is a theme that she worked with throughout her entire career, all the way up until today, in different iterations. Some like this infinity net, some more polka dots, some more veils, but this is a constantly reoccurring theme. It should be mentioned that Yayoi Kusama is self-institutionalized, and a lot of these works are her working through that. She talks a lot about seeing polka dots from a very early age, and this theme recurs every decade, every year of her career. We're very lucky to have this painting. This is one of the highest value lots in our sale at $700 to $1 million. This is the back cover of our catalog. We're very excited about this work because it's very fresh to the market. This work has exceptional provenance. This work is coming from a private collection that's owned the painting since it was made in the 1960s. It also comes from another artist who is also a Japanese-American artist who was introduced to Kusama through a friend who thought that this would look really nice in his home, and it did, and it remained in his home until now. So we're very lucky to have it.
Well, thank you for joining me for this insightful visit to Christie's Dallas. It's been a pleasure to have Christie's specialist Vivian Brodie with me today to give her insights and highlights of the upcoming sale, post-war to present, on September 27th. Hope you can join in and follow along.